Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to make a video today talking about some of the cold start issues that people have been noticing for a while now, it seems, on the KTM 890s, all the way back since 21. So if you guys want to stick around and listen to some of the things that I've done to, I believe, correct this issue, stick around at the end of the video. So I've mentioned before that I am going to give a walk around video on the KTM 890. But today, like I said, I want to talk more specifically about the cold start issue that people have had on these bikes. And I believe it to be caused by, I want to say, a number of things, not necessarily one thing. I believe that sometimes some of the issues that we can experience on any of our bikes, whether that be, this bike or another bike, seems to almost always be a combination of issues, not just one particular issue. Now, granted, that does happen a lot, of course, but again, with this particular issue, I've kind of narrowed it down to a couple of things. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you a little bit. So one of the things that I did on this bike, or upgrades, if you will, and you can't really see it all that well, is the Rottweiler kit that has the quick detach fuel lines with the inline fuel filter located behind the tank there. That way, pulling the tank off is a quicker and easier job. You do still have to remove the skid plate, of course, but with this setup, you undo the two fuel lines going to the fuel, or coming from the fuel outputs on the bottom of the tank. You disconnect your fuel pump lines and the vent hose. That was another thing that I changed on this. It's got the dirt bike style overflow. The vent hose comes out from the front and drains out down there. Anyways, so with the Rottweiler setup, it's also got the Rottweiler intake under the seat. That way it's got good airflow and good air filtration. But the reason why I'm pointing out the inline fuel system, or the inline fuel filter setup from Rottweiler, is it's got one-way check valves in the lines, which means that those lines, even when the motorcycle is turned off, are going to retain a little bit of pressure. So that's one thing, maintaining a good fuel pressure so that when you press the start up, the bike fires right up. That's the first thing. The second thing was tank off, checking out the spark plugs. I've noticed almost with any manufacturer out there that the factories almost never seem to gap the spark plugs. So I pulled the plugs out, checked the gap on them. They were both completely wrong. I wanted to change them anyways, went with iridium plugs, made sure to gap them, installed those, and then, like I said, I believe that the cold start issue on this bike is coming from those two areas, the fuel and the spark. So now that I've confirmed I've got good fuel pressure and I've got my spark plugs properly gapped, when I turn the bike on now, I never worry about that cold start issue where you hit the button and the bike starts up for a few seconds and then immediately dies, and then you have to like cycle the key to build fuel pressure and do this whole setup. I don't have that issue anymore. I did when I first got the bike, but then as I started upgrading it and changing those things, I noticed the biggest changes in that cold start issue between the new fuel setup, the new lines and everything, and then the spark plugs. So between those two things, no cold start issues. I will show you, but I just want to show you what I mean. Make sure to take that out. So yeah, that's the issue that people were facing. Not, you obviously saw that it ran fine. I don't have a video clip of what it would do before, but if you scavenge YouTube, you will find videos talking about this whole cold start situation. And I've owned this bike now for the last couple years, and the long-term ownership has kind of taught me these things, which is I've fixed a lot of problems before they became problems. I've fixed leaks. I had my water pump gasket leak, so I had to replace the water pump gasket, and I put some RTV on it to make sure that it wasn't going to happen again. My valve cover seal was leaking. Made sure to RTV that properly by pulling that off and everything. So I finally am now at a point to where I feel like I've corrected all of the issues that the bike has had out of the box, which kind of seems ludicrous, but I've experienced it with more brands than just KTM. I think all the manufacturers are just as guilty. However, you know, to defend KTM a little bit here, they are the only brand, aside from, you know, like Gask and Husqvarna, that have done things on the frame that make sense. Or even with replacement parts like clutch levers, brake levers, the frame has welded tabs for nylon locking nuts. And you don't see that on many other manufacturers' bikes, which usually causes people a lot of times to have to drill out and time insert a lot of holes for, you know, nuts and bolts and stuff that are in and out of the machine a lot. So I do kind of give kudos to KTM for thinking ahead in that sense, taking the fuel tank on and off. The nuts or the holes that they go into, they are welded onto the frame, so you don't have to necessarily worry about aluminum threads stretching anymore. And I appreciate stuff like that. But this cold start issue has been a big deal for a lot of people, and I think that I figured it out. I changed the fuel lines and the fuel system. It's got an inline fuel filter now, so there's added filtration, and then properly gapping the spark plugs, and she starts up every time, both cylinders. And yeah, so I'm pleased with it. I just wanted to share the information with you guys, and hopefully it reciprocates well with you and you appreciate it. So if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks.